Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Muscle Room Podcast. As always, Austin Glickman here with Joe Ryder and our guest today, Aaron Leonard from Guardian Revival. We're going to be talking today with Aaron about the Hold the Line program or the initiative that you guys are doing with the Tunnel to Towers organization, a great friend of ours, and really excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking a 2.5 hour ride all the way from West Point down here to Long Beach, Long Island. So we truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me here, Austin.
Of course. This is going to be a great episode. Really looking forward to it. And for those of you that are watching, welcome to the Muscle Room Podcast studio, which, as you can see in the background, is growing day by day. And for those of you that are just listening, imagine a really beautiful room with as much law enforcement and fire department memorabilia that you could think of all over the walls. So if you're not watching, you should. You should watch us on YouTube, and you can see what I'm talking about. So with that being said, Aaron, again, thanks for being here. Take us through who you are as an individual. Introduce yourselves to the viewers and let us know how you got involved with Guardian Revival.
Oh, it took a while to get there.
Okay.
I come from Northern California. I grew up just north of San Francisco. And when I was 18, I enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1987. Served for about 27 years. And when I retired, I took a job here in Lower Manhattan working for a sunsetted organization called Project Rebirth, which had collected the film around the rebuilding of Lower Manhattan following 9/11, and then also followed the stories of 9 people for 10 years who had been directly affected by the attacks. And that's how I really got hooked into this field of working with first responders and veterans, usually to help them out in some capacity. So you fast forward to about 5 years ago, and the coroner for my county, Putnam County, New York, introduced me to the founder of Guardian Revival, where I work now, at a breakfast. And Guardian Revival had just been founded by Alex Othmer and Chris Watkins. They were co-founders. They grew up in Carmel, New York, which is in Putnam County as well. And that was it. I saw that this great opportunity to be part of a growing, brand new organization, and jumped on board and was recently promoted into the Chief Executive Officer role about 4 months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great. So tell us, what actually is Guardian Revival? What is your mission?
Our mission is to help improve the mental health and overall well-being of military, veterans, and first responders, who we refer to as guardians, and their families. We do that through a number of different modalities. One, we're trying to raise awareness or educate on mental health illness and different ways that you can address that directly without having to see a clinician or a therapist. We offer 4 core programs, one of which is music therapy based, called Encore. The one that I used to run, called Another Summit, is an outdoor adventure program. Think hiking, backpacking, fishing, those types of things. An organization or a program called Boots and Paws, which provides companion animals, dogs, to first responders and veterans, right, the guardians. To date, we've awarded just over 120 animals since we were founded. And then the last core program we have is called Rise. And Rise focuses on well-being with the first responder community directly. So we work directly with some career police, fire departments, EMS, and dispatchers within Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, and Orange counties. We have about 35 memorandums of understanding associated with those organizations. And RISE will do workouts and provide yoga sessions and teach mindfulness practices to those that are currently serving.
How long has Guardian Revival been around?
It was founded in late 2019. The pandemic put a pause on it for about a year. So we really started operating and providing programming in early 2021.
You're relatively new.
Yes.
How has the organization grown so quickly?
I think I think the best way to describe how we've grown is just the passion behind the staff and the volunteers. People jump into our team and they just run with it, right? Myself included. As soon as we picked up on the spirit of the organization and what we were trying to address, we just saw this rapid growth. Last year, we approached about 12,000 guardians that we directly supported.
It's a pretty significant amount of Guardians that you've helped so far.
Yeah.
What's the total number since 2019?
That's a good question. We were a startup until the beginning of this year, so our data tracking may not have been the best. You think of a bunch of cops and firefighters,
of course,
soldiers trying to keep track of stuff. We were, when we started, I was running this outdoor adventure program, and I had been doing outdoor adventure programming for veterans in particular for a number of years before that. It was something I really fell in love with before I retired from the U.S. Army. Like I said earlier, my connection to this area was by happenstance in a lot of ways to become involved with the 9/11 organization right when I retired from the military. I did not plan on going into that work at all. I didn't plan on becoming a person who would leave outdoor adventures and trying to have some type of positive outcome for participants, like a therapeutic version of backpacking, right?
Right.
So I started doing this outdoor adventure stuff with Guardian Revival, and I would just run it out of my house, and I had gear in my house, right, and in a storage room, and just emailing personal people I knew, and sometimes it would just be me and one other person. We would count the dog. If a dog showed up, the dog would count as a person, so we'd have 3 people if there was a dog there, and then within about a year, we hired our first staff member, and a woman named Cassie, and she started to help organize how we would manage our data and how we would bring in money. And then we hired a second person specifically to help run the outdoor program because we had so many names coming in, and that's when we first started collecting data. We feel that total numbers is around 25,000.
Wow.
But we do feel pretty confident with the past couple of years of tracking.
But still, even if roughly 25,000, I mean, in just such a short period of time, that's very honorable, and you guys are doing a great job so far. And before the cameras turned on, we were talking about some of the people that we know together, and we were saying how this community is so small, right? Between the law enforcement, the firefighters, EMS, any other first responder capacity, hundreds of thousands throughout the United States. But we have the ability to connect with one another so well compared to maybe other professions where if you're at a bar and you meet somebody, you have that instant connection. You're able to communicate a lot better with that person as opposed to somebody else. Yeah. And I feel like we're able to, because of that connection, we're able to get to know each other a lot quicker. And I was at Police Week last year, and I met one of your employees or volunteers.
Sure did.
And it's funny how full circle everything comes. At that time, I hadn't really heard about Guardian Revival much at all. And now here I am sitting with the CEO of Guardian Revival talking about the programs that you guys have. And again, I'm just so excited and happy to have you guys here. And when Tunnels to Towers reached out to us saying, hey, we want to have Aaron come on the show and talk about hold the line, would you be willing to have him? And, Joe and I said absolutely. So it's funny how things happen, and I'm a big believer of things happening for a reason, and here we are. So
yes.
Great job with everything going on with Guardian Revival. I want to touch upon your military service though real quick before we get to hold the line,
sure.
if that's okay with you. So you said you did 27 years in the U.S. military.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, thank you for your service. I was not military myself. Always wished that I had gone to the military, and I think it's very admirable for anyone to serve our country. So tell me about your service. What did you do? What branch did you work in, et cetera? Yeah. What was your MOS?
There's a lot of stories.
I'm sure there are. Yeah, I'm sure there are.
Yeah, because I enlisted when I was 18, and so I mean, if you think about it, Ronald Reagan was president, right? How old were you then?
I wasn't.
Okay. And when my wife and I were watching something last night. It was like a movie that was from around 2000. They were talking about Y2K, and it's like very few people had a phone in their hand, right? Well, back then, of course, we had nothing going on, really. So my first duty station was in South Korea. And when I first came in, I was working in this field that no longer exists. It's called ground surveillance.
And what branch is this?
U.S. Army.
Okay.
Right. So the branch is military intelligence, but it was a surveillance position, and it was replaced by drones. So we were doing what drones would do, but we would do it on the ground. So it was one of those jobs that was, you had to be male only, and you had to be able to carry heavier weights, and you had to have really good hearing because you were listening to radar returns. So you would haul around this radar with you, and ground radar, you put it on the ground. You might be walking, you might be driving, you might be in an armored vehicle. And then you would just look for movement. And you would have to tell the difference between somebody walking and an animal or a vehicle by the sound of the return. Kind of like if you ever watch a submarine movie.
Yeah. That's what I was
The Sonar Man?
Yep.
It's like that. So it's this really weird job that's hard to describe unless you did it. And maybe somebody watching did it. There's a few of us out there. But my duty station was on the DMZ between North and South Korea, and we had an infantry platoon, and then I think there was like 3 or 4 of us that were the surveillance guys, and I was a private, which means nothing, right? So I'm responsible just for myself, but it was just a surreal environment because every morning before the sun came up, we would all go into the fighting positions, and they call it stand to. And if anybody was ever like a combat arms soldier, they would know what that is. It means the enemy is most likely to attack early in the morning or late in the evening. So stand to, you would just go get behind your weapons and watch. And then stand down at night, you do the same thing as the sun was going down. And we were watching North Koreans watch us. It was like they were maybe 100 meters away. It was very strange. And between us, we had claymore mines and ground placed mines, and we had all these heavy weapons. And, I told my mother this is where I was living. I thought it was kind of cool, right? And she was so worried about her son. She called our representative to the U.S. Congress and said that I wasn't given a chance to ever call her. Well, there was no emails, right?
Right.
So the communication was either through mail, and this is a long-distance relationship now, or you can do this thing called a Mars call, where you would get on the radio, like the radio at the guard post, and then they would relay your radio message through a phone system back to the States. And nobody else ever got a chance to use that. But because she called our congresswoman, I was directed to go and make a radio call to my mom. And the rest of my tour, it was just like a story.
How much heat did you get from
it was
everybody else?
quite a bit,
Yeah, sure. Who's this asshole who gets to call his mom and I don't?
Yeah, so that was how my career began. I also had a chance to meet Vice President George H. Bush.
Oh, wow.
When he came on, and then Secretary of Defense Frank Carlucci. I don't know any other real names of people that were Secretary of Defense, but I'll never forget those two because I had just gotten back from vacation and our leave. We take a couple weeks leave. And my hair was long, like about this length. And this was unsat for that guard post. And Vice President Bush looked at me and said, "Son, why is your hair so long?" Oh boy, that was...
yeah.
Yeah, so, that's how my career started. But it had a lot of twists and turns. I was a sergeant during Desert Storm with the 1st Infantry Division. I fought in our nation's 2nd largest tank battle, which is unreal, right?
Wow.
To think of today. Got a commission in 1996 through OCS, Officer Candidate School. And then became an artillery officer. And then after 9/11, deployed to Iraq 3 times. Twice with the 1st Cav and once with the 130th Field Artillery Brigade. And so that's, when you do the math, it's like 12 or 1,300 days in combat zones.
Phew.
And yet, here I am.
Here you are.
Perfectly fine. And really, very strongly, since I retired, interested in this work. When I was getting towards the end of my career, probably around 2010-ish, I was in the 3rd Brigade, 1st Cavalry Division. And we had a abnormally high, unfortunately, suicide rate amongst our soldiers. And during that time period, 2006, 2007, 2008, we were going through this cycle where if you weren't currently deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan, you were getting ready to go. And when you got done, you went back home and you're getting ready to go again. So me and my family, we went through this cycle where, I was gone for a year. I came home for a year. I was gone for a year, came home for a year, gone for a year. That's a lot, right? For not just a soldier, but also for a family. But I was older then. And since I was older, I had more grit, right? More life experiences. I was able to rely on a broader support network of family and friends and colleagues. And so my susceptibility to developing symptoms, life-altering symptoms of post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, I feel, was lowered because of the life experiences, because I just had more resilience from everything that I had been doing. And I got interested in, well, why is that? Why is it that our younger soldiers who are 18, 19, 20, 25, they're really having a hard time, and the older ones not as much. And I'm not a scientist in this. I'm not a social scientist, but I do know that this was a common observation, and it was attached to this idea of resilience. And then I happened to have a chance to go on an outdoor adventure with an organization called Outward Bound. Have you ever heard of them?
I have.
Yeah, pretty cool group.
Yeah.
They were actually founded during World War II, specifically to increase the resilience of merchant marines that are sailing out of Great Britain. And I happened to get this chance to go on a trip with them after my last combat deployment to Iraq. So me and a couple of my colleagues went, and that was my introduction to what my life could be like out of the military. Up until that moment in time, I was going to stay in for as long as I could. I probably would have, so I'm 56, so I probably would have gotten out about a year ago.
You still did 27 years.
I did.
And what did you retire as? What was your rank?
Lieutenant Colonel.
Wow.
I retired.
Pretty high.
Yeah, if you are at that rank, you don't think it's very high. But
as a civilian, to me, it sounds pretty high. I mean, I don't know what the rank structure really is, but I know it's pretty high up there, no?
It's a field grade officer position. You can have a lot of responsibility that goes with it. And maybe it's just my personal feeling that, I did it such a long time that it didn't seem like a big deal at the moment. But
so if I knew you weren't a general, I probably wouldn't have had you come on the podcast, but that's okay.
That's funny. Yeah.
I have a funny story we'll get back to that in a second. Last year during Police Week, we had a private tour of the Pentagon, and a bunch of us were walking through the Pentagon with the Pentagon Police Department, and I had some NYPD patches with me and some other memorabilia, and I said, I want to get something from the Pentagon. I want to trade with somebody, a challenge coin or something, and we're walking through the halls, and unbeknownst to us, it was the same exact day that President Biden at the time was having his meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And every single general of every, 1 star up to whatever the high was, 4 or 5 star? 4 star, was walking through the hallways. And every time a general came to the hallway, we had to kind of, move to the side out of respect. And I don't know what came over me. And I was like, I'm going to ask one of these generals for something. So one of them came walking by. I think he was a 3-star. He was the tell me if this sounds correct. He was the chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Does that sound right? He was a 3-star. He was in charge of the Joint Chiefs, like putting, I don't know what that means, but he was putting them together.
Sure.
Whatever. He's walking through the hallway, and I said, excuse me, General. And he turns around, and I said, Austin Glickman with the NYPD. I'm here for Police Week. And I said, I know you're busy. Can I give you an NYPD patch? And I gave him the patch. And he goes, I carry something with me, or one of my, assistants carry something. We don't have anything. We're going to this meeting with the president right now. He goes, you know what? He goes, fuck it. And he rips a star off of his uniform, and he hands it to me. And he goes, here, have this. And I thought that was so cool. He goes, don't worry, I have plenty of them. And then he did it again, and he gave it to my other buddy, Mark, because he gave him a Suffolk County Police Department patch. And I don't know. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then he went off, and he went to the meeting with the president.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was such a cool thing, because again, me not being a military person, I was like, wow, I was in awe. I was like, that was awesome.
I think there's a connection though, because it's being in the military, being a first responder, especially being a law enforcement officer, your service you provide is like, we're service oriented people.
Right.
Even when I retired, I started volunteering as a firefighter because I just wanted to keep doing something in that direct support of
it's that
our
paramilitary
community.
structure, right?
Yeah.
That's what we say in law enforcement. It's a paramilitary structure, and many members of the military end up going into law enforcement, firefighting, EMS, because, like you're saying, it's that structure that they're used to, right?
So one of the questions I have after what you just said, I know you enlisted first, so you went from enlisting to a commissioned officer.
Right.
Do you think that helped you relate to your soldiers a little bit better when you were in a leadership position and understanding kind of what they were going through at the 18, 19, 20-year-old and like what they're feeling like? Did it help you relate to them more or at least know what they're going through?
I think so. I think it gives you an appreciation because I've been the guy that was, cleaning the latrines or doing the grunt work, and I've been a sergeant, so I had that direct exposure and that lower leadership level to to motivate folks, provide that purpose that people need to get from one day to the next. And then when you're a lieutenant, a brand new lieutenant, it's your last time you'll ever work directly with soldiers on the ground in the field. And in the artillery, as an artillery platoon leader, I had a platoon of when I was a platoon leader, I was in charge of a multiple launch or MLRS, multiple launch rocket systems. So it's something you may have heard in Ukraine. We sent them HIMARS.
Yeah.
So it's a predecessor to the HIMARS. It runs on tracks versus wheels, and it has twice the capacity to carry. It carries 12 rockets or 2 missiles versus HIMARS, which carries 6 rockets or 1 missile. Now you learned something new.
I did.
Right?
Certainly did. Yeah.
And I had gun crews, or missile crews, I guess you would call them. So I had 3 MLRS vehicles. Each of them had 3 people on it, and that was the missile crew. And then I had a small headquarters element that would help manage, where to point the thing and shoot. Right.
Right.
And that was it. And that was me in the field with the soldiers, and we were all part of one team. And that was that ended in, I think, 98 or so.
Okay.
And after that, you're at this progressively higher level, and the higher up you go, I think the less exposure you might have with the soldiers that are, the privates and the sergeants. You try to spend time with everybody, but you're not really on their level. So when you walk in the room, you might cause interference, right? People might stop what they're doing, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to disrupt things either. So it's a whole different world once you've gotten promoted past, say, a lieutenant level, and you're starting to work more responsibility. You get more concerned with things like logistics and training calendars and budgets, and less concerned with.
It's administrative.
Yeah, it's more administrative because it's definitely leadership, and you're definitely making some hard decisions, and you're definitely protecting the people below you with 100% loyalty to everybody on the team. But it's a different role. So having been a private and a sergeant, and having that time as a lieutenant, and then all those experiences going up through the rank I retired at, I think it did help quite a bit. I mean, I spent almost 10 years enlisted. And that's a lot of time spent with people on the ground that a regular officer who doesn't do that, they don't have that level of exposure,
How has that helped you with Guardian Revival?
I like to tell people that if you, and I can't speak for your career field, clearly, I'm curious actually about your leadership development.
Sure.
But the U.S. Army has the world's best leadership schools and world's best experience to develop leaders. We have a great way of developing our leaders. It's why we're such a powerful force. So does any other branch of the U.S. military, even the Coast Guard. Anybody from the Coast Guard is listening, they'll love that.
We definitely
Actually, when the Space Force was created, the Coast Guard celebrated.
Right, yeah, I heard that. I've heard that. We have a lot of Coast Guard friends who definitely watch the show, and I'm sure they're going to be seeing this.
Members for Leo Weekend.
Yeah, one of our former members, board members, used to be a Coast Guard. I think actually still is in the Coast Guard. Yeah.
Well, I love Coasties. And I'm saying that publicly.
Yeah.
We have these great schools, and we have these great. You go to school, and then you go practice at that level, and you go to another school and practice at that level. I went to 3 different levels of leadership training when I was enlisted, and then 4 different levels of leadership training when I was an officer, including one that was a residential 1-year college program, graduate program. And all run by the Department of Defense, by the U.S. Army. And then the experience on the ground you get afterwards, like being in situations where you just feel overwhelmed. Like think of the most stressful scene you can have in a residence or on the street somewhere in the city. And then, that's what we would experience. Combat's not all shooting guns and stuff. A lot of it's diffusing situations and trying to maintain the peace with the people who live in these communities that we're working in, and trying not to hurt people. Right? It's a unique experience to put our young men and women into. And you have to learn how to lead with a purpose and provide direction and motivate people to do the work. Like really motivate them. They have to want to follow you to whatever level you're at. You're having this direct impact on everybody that's below you. You want all of them to come home. You want all of them to get the training they need so they can be really proficient at their jobs, so they can deploy somewhere in this world and do what we're supposed to do, and also then come home. And the one challenge that I think we always face, though, is we didn't really have time to prepare people psychologically for what they were going to be facing. The human suffering that they would be witnessing and living with daily, the lives they may take, the lives that they may know that are lost, or themselves being injured, or the exposures to that cumulative stress over time. As leaders in the Army, we were aware of the effects of these things, but we weren't really able to spend too much time preparing for it. Think of if you had to do 100 tasks, check the block things, right? Everything from, is your dental work okay? That's actually something we have to do. We have to make sure our soldiers' dental health is good, because if you deploy them somewhere and it's not, what do you do? Right?
Yeah.
Make sure their legal issues are square, their wills and powers of attorney with their families are good to go. Their families are prepared. You're doing all this stuff. And then you start getting the warfighting skills. Do you know how to clear a stoppage on your M4? Do you know how to put on a pressure dressing? Do you know how to stop a sucking chest wound, right? Do you know how to maintain your vehicle? Do you know how to check the fluids and drive safe? All these tasks that we do before we can deploy, say, a 5,000 soldier unit overseas to be able to operate in this complex environment, we're unable to spend time on the tasks that usually at the bottom of the list that are preparing people for the psychological impact of what they're about to witness and be part of. So in 06, 07, 08, when we were deploying, getting ready to deploying, we had no time for any of that. And what happened was, I think, a leader's worst nightmare, which is we would come home from these deployments and we would have a sizable percentage of our force kind of fall apart. And yet we're trying to get ready to go back. And we have people on our unit that are dying by suicide. And as leaders, it really puts you to the test. And I've never forgotten that experience. And when the work that I do at Guardian Revival is driven by knowing what it's like to be like in that place, and watching your soldiers who you all love and want to support and you want them to be successful, just struggling with what they've seen and done for our country. And then there's only so much we can do. And then they leave and they go off and they do other stuff. And maybe they find an organization like ours if they live in the Hudson Valley.
So I was going to ask, is it only a New York-based organization, or have you guys expanded outside of the area?
That's a great question. And if my leadership team watches this, they're going to love, again, hearing the same response.
Okay.
We were a startup for 5 years, right? So for 5 years, we are a startup. We are no longer a startup. We are a company. We're a nonprofit. We have nearly 40 staff members that are paid. We have twice that number of people willing to volunteer for us. And we operate in the lower Hudson Valley. And we do that because our mission is mostly fulfilled on the ground physically working directly with people like yourself, Austin, physically spending time with you and your family, doing things together. And we can't do that if we don't focus on where we live. There are tens of thousands of career guardians, first responders that live and work in the city or live and work where we're at in just those 4 counties I mentioned. I'm not even talking about Rockland County or Jersey or Connecticut, just Westchester, which of course has got, Yonkers and New Rochelle and whatnot, and then Putnam, which is just north of Westchester, and then Dutchess, which is this huge, very rural county. In Orange County, everybody's heard of. Yeah, so we decided to put all of our work in where we know there's a need. The state of New York, for example, just released a study just a few months ago from the Benjamin Center in SUNY that identified a gap in services available to first responders. So again, law enforcement, paramedics, EMTs, dispatchers, firefighters. And we know that we have tens of thousands of those folks that work and live in Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, and Orange County. And we know that we're more effective when we're on the ground doing stuff face-to-face, in person. Because most of our work starts with peer support, providing peer support. So people like Dave, who you met, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody who is a retired police officer who's now able to work directly supporting police officers that are still serving their communities. And it allows them to make a direct connection very quickly on the ground. And he becomes somebody that they can go to in full confidence and have really powerful conversations. And Dave is trained, of course, to redirect people as needed for a higher level of care if they indicate signs or symptoms that they need that. That's a lot of work to do on the ground. We're not prepared to go outside of the Hudson Valley because of the amount of time it takes to work with folks, the amount of time it takes to establish trusting relationships with the police department. Maybe it's White Plains police we're working with, and they have over 100 officers that serve there. And New York, the study New York published tells us that they're more susceptible because of the size of the force. Once you go over 100 officers on duty, they're more susceptible to the effects of cumulative stress. They're more likely to develop signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress. They're going to see more traumatic events over the course of their career, considerably more. They're reporting to us that an officer at a department the size of White Plains will likely see 400 traumatic events in their career when people living in White Plains might see 4 in their entire lifetime. So yes, we're not going outside of the Hudson Valley until we get really good at the work we need to provide right here where we all live. We're definitely a community-based organization. We do have some national reach. We do some virtual programming. So our RISE program, which focuses on that foundational health and wellness aspect, they provide yoga and this program called IRES, which is a form of meditative yoga through virtual capacity. So anybody in the world who has access to the internet can participate in those.
Can you talk a little about, I know you mentioned cumulative stress. Mm. I think for the past 20 years or so, the science around PTSD, especially with military members, has become a lot more commonplace knowledge that PTSD exists in that community. With first responders, I feel like it's only been the last maybe 10 years or so that some of these conditions have been really started to be studied for our community. I remember when I was a reporter more than 10 years ago, I worked with, I did a story with Benjamin Luft. He's a doctor at Stony Brook with the 9/11 Health Registry. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about cumulative stress and starting that research there. Can you talk a little bit about what cumulative stress is and how it relates and how it differs from PTSD?
Sure. So post-traumatic stress disorder is the manifestation of signs and symptoms that something's going on inside of a person. It's usually you can measure an increase in cortisol in their blood. That's a tricky chemical to measure, but it is released during moments of stress. And if somebody's suffering from PTSD, they typically have, it's almost like a faucet's been turned on. So it's a continuous drip of that drug inside of their body. And it's always leaving them in this state of hyperarousal. And they're always on the edge of a natural reaction we all have, which is fight, flight, freeze, or fawning, right? Those are the 4 types of reactions we can have from being exposed to a dangerous environment, a stressor of some kind. So cumulative stress puts you in a constant stressed out moment. And many officers, many first responders will report that they're always in that stress moment. And it's a result of being exposed to cumulative stress. So cumulative stress can lead to symptoms of post-traumatic stress. It can lead to symptoms of depression or anxiety, and anxiety. And it can also cause people to take different actions that can cause harm. Failed marriages, failed relationships, failed parenting, misusing drugs and alcohol, poor judgment in life decisions. Like you know people at this stage in your careers, you have to know fellow officers who you've seen this happen to. You may
plenty.
even feel it yourself.
It sounds like a lot of stereotypes that surround police and firemen from years
100%.
past.
Yeah. So, our organization is trying to hold the line. So this hold the line event, a lot of it has to do with discussing the stigmas and some of the science and the reasons why things may happen, and how unhealthy it is to get off of your shift and go to the bar, or how unhealthy it is to not spend time with people that you work with or people in your family doing things outdoors. Take the vacation to Florida and go fishing. Spend time with your fellow firefighters up in the Adirondacks at Lake George. These are all healthy things to do. Going to a cop bar at the end of your shift and putting a $100 bill in a cup and drinking till it's gone is not necessarily healthy. From time to time, why not? That's fun, right? But not every day, and what organizations exist out there that can help these people who you can go to and not worry about being reported to anybody. Our peer support leaders, the ones who work in the community, they're retired or former police, fire, military, EMS, dispatch. And the only reporting requirement we give them is if the person they're talking to shows any signs that they may hurt themselves or somebody else. Otherwise, we're just there to talk, and we're going to have a confidential conversation. It could be just you or I, right? And we can talk about anything, and I might be able to guide you in a direction within my organization or another one to get you some help at a very community low level, not something that you have to report back to your command, that you're receiving actual therapeutic care, right? Because our experience is that a lot of law enforcement officers in particular are very hesitant to talk about the stresses of their life to somebody other than their colleagues perhaps, or their family, because of a fear of losing their jobs or losing the ability to carry a firearm. And the same applies for anybody who works in the first responder community. If somebody is reported as being mentally unstable, their command may decide to take them out of their positions, right? We want to work with people before it gets to that level. So cumulative stress starts when you're at the academy. You may have brought stuff in from your childhood into the job too. So you don't know, right, exactly what you're getting when you have your first day out on the street. But then by the first year, the second year, the third year, you're starting to build up a lot of cumulative stress. Even a volunteer firefighter in this sleepy little village that I live in that has maybe 250 calls in a year, our firefighters, our volunteers will have 5, 6, 7 traumatic events in a year. And most of the community has 0, right? So even with our folks in this really light work that we do, we have to be aware of the impact it has on them. We had a traumatic event a few weeks ago, and we offered up peer support services to the volunteer department. Nobody took us up on the offer, but we made the offer. They know we exist, right? So that maybe if something happens in the future, they would be more likely to participate and just let some of our our staff who are retired firefighters come in and talk to them about their experience. Like we have a former member of FDNY who was working the pile after 9/11, who now works as a peer support specialist for us. He does a really good job talking to firefighters after a traumatic event because he's been through a lot of his own experiences when he was on FDNY. So it's accumulative stress is just that exposure to trauma, human suffering, things you're not, like how many people do CPR on somebody and then they don't survive, right? How many people see a suicide victim, somebody who jumps in front of a train, or someone who shoots themselves in their apartment, then the officers go up, they're the first on scene. How many exposures to an opioid overdose do you deal with? Or to a domestic violence incident where you see, innocent people who have been physically harmed. And then you go to the next call right after that. Like, when do you take a moment to process those experiences, right? You don't. So that's the cumulative stress part, just builds up. 06, 07, 08 with the military, we saw our largest exposures to cumulative stress because we were having people do these long tours. If you don't recall, around 07, I think it was, we went into the surge in Iraq and we increased people's time in country to 15 months. And I remember, I was in Iraq at the time, and I remember this unit that came out of Alaska. They were a Stryker brigade. Stryker vehicles are these 8-wheeled armored vehicles. And they're light, they move around really well. And they had just started to deploy back home to Alaska. Maybe their first few units had made it back home when they were told that your deployment is now going to be another 3 months long. Even the folks who made it back to Alaska got back on a plane back to Iraq, right? And it was maybe the next day when their first soldier was killed in Baghdad. And we all knew that was going to happen. But it was just like that. This is a young soldier that could have been home, probably should have been home, but wasn't home because they got extended and they got moved from northern Iraq down into Baghdad to help quit. There was a lot of issues going on in Baghdad at that time. And that story's always stuck with me because it's the level of stress that unit had experienced during their 15-month deployment would have been astronomical. And the cumulative stress of that day after day after day. And you can get pretty graphic with the stories, but you've seen, I've seen some young men and women do some pretty heroic stuff and just get right back out. They'll wash the blood off their hands and go back out on the street like that, right? So it's I think the most deadly thing we expose people to in this field is that day in, day out stress, and then not having a strong way in-house or within the community to deal with it, to work with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great segue. Let's talk about Hold the Line. How has Guardian Revival and Tunnel to Towers teamed up to create this great one-day event, which is going to be May 2nd, correct?
Yes, May 2nd, starts at 8:30 at the Conrad in Lower Manhattan, 100% free. All the services that we provide are free. Everything that Tunnel to Towers does to help our first responders and veterans is also done at no cost. And we're very complementary organizations. We have a lot of need for stabilizing lives and then providing care. And both organizations are very much interested in our first responders and our military having healthy and purposeful civilian lives when they leave the service, to be able to get back to some sense of happiness, right? Being able to be part of their community and live a healthy life like they deserve to do. And then you've got this in-between time from the minute you join to the minute you get out. You got to survive that too. And Hold the Line is about introducing people to all the different things they could do to increase awareness, not only with themselves, but within their commands. So we're hoping to see, and we should see, based off of what we saw last year, not only members of the first responder and the veteran community, in particular the first responder community, we expect to see leaders from the different agencies that participate. And the ones who can make change from the top down within their organizations. And awareness of the impacts of stress and how that can affect everybody's life involved with that one person who's serving. And then the different things that you have available to you to help you to kind of mitigate some of the effects of cumulative stress. Everything from owning a companion animal, participating in the Equus effect, which we talked about earlier, and their version of equine therapy, which is a very unique and very effective method that they use in Sharon, Connecticut. Some of the other programs that we offer, including our Encore Music Therapy program, the importance of health and wellness. These are all the themes that are going to come out during the Hold the Line day. It's only about 8 hours long in total. You get a free breakfast in the morning. You get to hang out with some really cool people in Lower Manhattan. Hold the Line has the potential to cause immediate positive impacts within organizations if only they send people to it.
Are there openings still available? Can anyone just show up off the street, or how do they register?
Registration's open now.
So if anybody wants to attend the Hold the Line event, which is going to be at the Conrad down in Lower Manhattan, May 2nd, starts at 8:30.
Breakfast starts at 8:30.
I would register ASAP because it's probably going to fill up, I would assume, right?
Yes, it'll probably fill up.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So definitely head to that website, register, let them know that we sent you, and you'll get an extra scrambled egg on your plate. Second year for HTL. About 1,000 plus attendees that are going to be there at the Conrad in Lower Manhattan. Now, I assume you're also going to have guest speakers coming, and it's going to be a whole day of just learning, right?
That's right.
Knowledge.
It's a whole day of learning.
You want to name some of the guest speakers that you know that are coming?
Well, there's myself.
Fantastic.
I'll be speaking about the effects of therapeutic outdoor adventure on first responders and veteran community. Our keynote speaker is our organization's co-founder, Alex Othmer. He'll be speaking about his own experiences and the power of what we provide and how it can be life-changing. We'll also have speakers that work in these specific shift-related fields, so fire and police, that can discuss everything that they've learned over their careers to help manage their life at home, to be able to work these strange hours. Like shift work is a real deal, right? You don't do shift work in the U.S. Army unless you're unlucky. You have more of a daytime schedule. So I don't know what it's like to do like midnights or something like that. But from what I understand, it can have an impact on people's health. So we're going to talk about that, about the effects of shifts and wellness activities you can incorporate to help with that. The power of owning animals, a pet, a dog, maybe a cat, dog preferred, right? So, sorry.
I'm definitely a dog person myself. I'm not a cat person by any means.
Yeah, health and wellness, right? Mental health and then physical health and wellness. That's the themes.
How do people get involved? We have a bunch of listeners that live in the lower Hudson Valley, and we know a lot of people up there. If they want to get involved with your organization, what can they do? How can they reach out?
Guardian Revival is easy. guardianrevival.org. And right at the bottom of the website, the landing page is a place to put your email, and you'll get the newsletter. You get invited to everything we do. And you just pick something you want to be part of. The last outdoor event we did was last Saturday, so just 2 days ago. And it was early morning trail cleanup on one of the trails. The calendar has over 700 events for the year.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Some of us say it's a few too many, but over 700 events this year. To date, we're getting close to around 200 that we've completed. And some of them are online. Some of the easiest ones for people who don't live in the Hudson Valley are going to be online. But I think the ones you want to be part of are going to require you to be physically present. We even have a really cool program for families called Homefront, Guardian Homefront. The last event that I went to there was maybe a week ago. It was a screening of the film, a kids movie that just came out, Minecraft.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Have not watched it myself. But I think most of the participants at that was a police officer and their kids that went. And they just watched a movie on a Saturday morning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
We rented out the theater, so there was nobody else there.
That's cool. Very cool.
Had about 70 or 80 people in the room.
it reminds me of our organization, but you guys are way larger and doing a lot more events. We do about 20 events a year, and I thought we were busy. I can't imagine doing 700 events a year. I can't actually. I can't imagine it. My board would kill me if I ever try to get anywhere near that number.
My operations officer, Beth Ann, is a retired Marine Corps lieutenant colonel, and she can't believe that we're doing 700 events this year.
And it's only just those 4 counties.
Yeah.
Imagine if you expanded into New York City, Nassau, Suffolk. I mean,
Our 5-year plan has us getting really strong in the Hudson Valley from New York City to the Catskills.
so you're gonna go north.
No, we're gonna strengthen our footprint in the lower in that space, right? So, Ulster County, New York, and Dutchess County, New York will probably be the northern limit, and that's the Catskills are right there.
Yep.
In Ulster County.
Yeah.
And then maybe sneak a bit over into Connecticut, like in Danbury, or down the West County area, Connecticut.
Well, we have a lot of connections in Danbury, if you ever need anybody, and we have a lot of connections in Ulster as well. We're actually very close to the Ulster County Sheriff's Office. They provide the honor guard for us every year at a lot of our events.
Oh, good to know.
Fantastic people. They actually run the honor guard class. There's only one class for all of New York State that is a certified honor guard class, and they're the ones that do it. That's how good they are. So they teach other departments how to essentially appropriately provide honor and color guard for funerals and other events. It's a phenomenal class. I've sat through it a few times actually up in Lake George. So yeah, if you ever need any connections up there, which you probably don't, but if you do, you can feel free to reach out to us.
You never know, you might need help.
You never know. You never know. But you guys seem like you guys have it locked.
We have a lot going on, but let me tell you that if we just work in the Hudson Valley and don't go past Ulster County and Dutchess County, in that area, there's over 200,000 guardians.
Wow.
And think of how much work even if just 20% of those folks needed help at any given time.
Yeah.
That's still a lot of folks to work with.
It is.
So you have to, I think you have to put effort into the community where we're at to cause an actual effect, a positive impact that's beyond superficial.
Right.
Directly establishing relationships with fire and police and EMS and dispatch, usually the county at the dispatch level. That doesn't happen overnight. Building the trust with those organizations takes time. And some of them have already said, no, thank you.
Really?
So then you go back to them maybe later, right? Or you have their friend that's a neighbor to them, neighbor department, talk about them.
Yeah.
So it's a concentrated effort. It's going to take us at least 5 years to be really strong just in that area alone. There's other ways to have a larger impact than where you're physically at. You can do that through research and publishing stories and sharing the effects. You can do that through creating educational material that's not limited by borders, and a lot of that exists. The Fallen Firefighter Foundation, for example, has got great trainings on ways you can take care of your own mental health as a firefighter or any first responder organization. So it's not just us that is working in this world, right? It's just we're on the ground here, where we think we need to be. Could our program design have impacts elsewhere? I'm sure it could. That'll be for the next CEO to figure out.
When's that going to be?
Yeah, that'll be for a bit.
Yeah,
that'll be a bit.
Yeah, you have a lot of compassion, and you seem like the right man for the job.
Well, I appreciate that.
It seems like we need to add some military lieutenant colonels into our ranks, and maybe we'll be able to expand as much as you guys have. It's very, very impressive what you guys have been able to do, seriously, in such a short period of time.
Well, I tell you, Alex Othmer and Chris Watkins are co-founders. Alex in particular came in, and he was the visionary leader, right? And he built this great team of people around him that just have all this passion, and the amount of experience we have on the ground is phenomenal. If you look at all of our key leaders, and you just look at the decades they've already put into the work, nobody here is new.
Yeah.
And everybody has got these crazy stories from their own experiences that got them to where they are today. And I've been fortunate to be given an opportunity to to lead the organization. I cannot think of a better last job to have, right? I imagine I'll never stop being involved. I will stop having this much responsibility at some point, but this is one of those things where you just keep going. You currently work as an officer with NYPD, and you have a nonprofit that you and Joe run, right? Mm-hmm. And then one day you won't work at NYPD, but you will still be involved in the community.
Oh yeah.
You don't just walk away from this stuff. It's
a lifelong compassion, I think, for all of us, especially in this nonprofit field.
Yeah.
It takes a really special person to dedicate the time and effort to give back.
One of my big takeaways, if the need wasn't there and the need wasn't as prevalent as it is, I don't think you would have grown as big as you have. So I think the fact that you have grown as big as you are shows how big the need is for those kind of services.
Yeah. There definitely is, especially and I go back to it a couple of times now, especially that peer support level work, where we're just giving somebody, maybe you had a bad shift and you just need somebody to talk to that's not your spouse, it's not your sergeant, it's not the bartender, it's this guy named Dave who you can call and talk to.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a very approachable person too. For those of you who know Dave, if you've met him at Police Week, he was everywhere. He was great. He's a really, really nice guy. So we'll wrap it up. For those of you that are watching, you'd see right here we have the Guardian Revival Challenge coin that you were so kind to donate to the Muscle Room studio. We have the hat, and we got a T-shirt off to our right.
Hold the line hat. That's the official HTL.
It's
limited
awesome.
quantity.
I like it. You know what I like about these types of hats? And I feel like I've seen more organizations doing things like this. It's not too much going on design-wise, where the person who's wearing it knows exactly what it means, but you're not broadcasting to everybody else, hey, look at me, I'm a cop, or hey, look at me, I'm a fireman, or hey, look at me, I'm going to a stress management event. But to the person who's wearing it, or to those who know what this symbol represents, it means something. And so I like these types of designs as opposed to like that outwardly, which don't get me wrong, I am a huge buff, obviously.
You don't say.
Yeah, but I do like to wear hats like these and shirts like that where I know what it means, but to everybody else, I'm not outwardly showing I'm a first responder sometimes.
Yeah,
because sometimes you don't want that, right?
It's true. Yeah.
So it's a very nice design. So, sir, thank you for coming in. Really, truly appreciate it. Last few words. Give our viewers a good sum up before they head off into whatever they're doing later today.
Well, I think I would say for those of you that are first responders or that are veterans, don't let your past experiences have a negative impact on your life. It's not too late. It's never too late to step out and become part of something that can help you or help others. Myself have found that doing this work has kept me alive. And I would encourage anyone listening who feels that they're in a tough spot to take action. You can always reach out to us. We'll answer anybody who contacts us directly.
Fantastic. And again, May 2nd, for those of you that want to attend the Hold the Line event at the Conrad in downtown Manhattan, May 2nd at 8:30 a.m., htl.org. Sign up now. Make sure to get your spot. Go check out and support Guardian Revival. Support Tunnel Towers, two amazing organizations. And again, thank you for coming on. Truly, truly appreciate it. And just great job with all the amazing work that you're doing.
Thanks, Austin. Thanks, Joe.